Hi guys. I should probably face towards the one like behind the one that behind me, right? I think so. I face this way. Hand it down. Hi guys. Sorry, I took all my makeup off. Um, we are gonna have bedtime story, and right now we are reading Tenderness by Allison McLeod. It's about Jackie Kennedy. So it's nothing has really happened so far, but her husband Robert F. Kennedy is about to run for president. So that's just a little synopsis. So just keep that in mind. Um, and we're gonna start from here. So they're introducing some new characters, so that's perfect. These are all based off true characters. Okay. E.M. Forster, whom the Lawrences also met at All Alliance dinner party the summer before, was next to arrive. He stepped across their threshold bearing unwelcome news from civilization. The Boots Lending Library, he had been informed, was to refuse to take Lawrence's book of stories, The Prussian Officer. Also, more context, there is a legal action going on against a particular author and book that Jackie Kennedy is kind of publicly tied to. It made a bad start. I know, we're right. Apparently, glumly announced the brutal deception of the officer in the title story, Prussian or Not, had been deemed unacceptable. Forrester offered his heartfelt, a characteristically restrained sympathy. It made a bad start. The exile resented his guests for the gloom he had carried into their new home. A bottle of red would have sufficed, Lawrence muttered to Frida later that night in bed. And Mary's staging of the requisite guest photograph she assisted with childish perseverance on a tableau in which the two men were to clutch a catkin each and face off. Persepience, I guess. In the picture, Forster, then 36, 7 years the senior, appears mild-mannered and morose. He has slopped shoulders, a receding chin, a drooping mustache, and curiously flattened features. He feels ludicrous and wonders why Lawrence indulges the child. He holds his catkin husk reluctantly and potently and will not take direction. By contrast, the exile, who always loves a charade or sketch, assumes a mock fencing position and presses the tip of his catkin to Forster's throat. Righto, he calls. The sea was bright that day, and the downs in mid-February alive, with noisy starlings and sweeter songs of warblers. Halfway up the nearest hill, Lawrence and Forster stopped and surveyed side by side the blue water lapping at the toy villages on the river plain, and the lonely train stemming through a perilous gap in the floods. How vulnerable everything was, thought the exile. At the side of the train, the old American folk song came into his head. Yonder come the train, she coming down the line, blowing every station, Miss McKinley is a dime. It's a hard time, it's a hard time. As they climbed higher, he reached after the other lyrics in his mind. A London music hall impresario had given him the sheet music in his long ago teaching in Crodeon. He sung it often with the boys. The forked pennants of snowdrops trembling along the track, their hope as fragile as ever that cold winter. A starling advanced ahead of them, a hopping guide. Forrester remarked on the beauty of the black sheen, while Lawrence pointed out that every color, even black, held others. It was his painter's sensibility. He showed his companion the lustrous greens among the black on the bird's head, and the deep purple feathers on his neck. Now watch this, and he began to make whistling sounds. Astonishingly, the startling without pausing in his progress up the track, proceeded to mimic his pipes. Forrester laughed heartily for the first time, and he didn't know how long, marveling when his friend even coaxed from the bird a toodlepip. All seemed right again with the world, and Forrester understood what Lady Ottoline had meant. Lawrence had a wonderful childlike quality and excitement over the small things, as well as the great ones. Forrester relaxed into his visit, or rather he did until later that afternoon as they sat down to tea, and all the small bright things of life were suddenly eclipsed. Hilda ran into the room. She stood just over the threshold, clutching her sides as she'd been slain. "Oh, ma'am," she said to Frida, not feeling it proper to bother the men. "They've gone and killed my brother at the war." All three swiveled in their chairs. Frida leaned forward and began to speak. "Oh, my dear." But it was Lawrence who stood immediately and extended his arms to her. He took her into the kitchen, made her sweet tea, fed her own freshly baked biscuits, and spoke to her soothingly. Forrester and Frida sat in respectful silence, listening with heads bowed to the sounds of her sobs. Untouched their tea, untouched, their tea and toast went cold. The exile had, Forrester realized as they listened, a remarkable gift for tenderness. He himself would have struggled to do much more than offer Hilda his chair. When the exile joined them once more, an hour later, Forrester saw that his eyes were red rimmed. "I could wring the neck of humanity for it." The following day, his host worked on the rainbow in his room, while Frida played Beethoven on the piano and Forrester himself wrote letters on the long refectory table. "The Lawrences I like, especially him. We have had a 2 hours walk in the glorious country between here and Ardennes, and he told me all about his people, drunken father, sister who married a tailor, most gay and friendly, who breaks a look at first, catkins." Lawrence emerged from his room, dazed from his labors over a novel which had to succeed, and to succeed it had to get past the censors. Would it? He couldn't begin to say. He was incapable of reading as censors read, of thinking in the crude manner they did. He would have to ask dear Viola, the flitch, check it for him before sending it off. He sank into a chair across from Forrester and stared through the sitting room window on the deepening twilight. It was dark by 4 o'clock. "If I can bash on the page even a little what grips me, I don't care whether I'm rich, poor, celebrated, or forgotten. When I finally cough off this mortal coil." Forrester looked up, smiled mildly, and returned to his page. Talking about when he dies. Lawrence picked up a scrap of fur from a work basket. He was making Frida a winter hat, a sort of Russian toque. The attack came that night. Frida, unable to divert or cajole her husband from his outbursts, retreated to her room and listened through the bedroom door as she lit into the falls of Forrester's novels, all incidentally sought after by the Booth's lending library. Then he started on Forrester, the man. Why did he, Forrester, recoil from passionate intimacy? Was he still a virgin? At 36? No wonder he, Forrester, was so utterly cramped and miserable in his manhood. Why couldn't he act? Why did he dodge himself? Why couldn't he take a woman and fight clear to his own basic primal being? "Is there anything you value in my work?" said Forrester quietly, returning to that which mattered most to him. "Anything at all?" The character of Leonard Bast. Forrester waited. Nothing more came. At that he nodded and, trembling slightly, took his candle and retired without saying goodnight. Lawrence shouted after him, "Why do you object to me telling you about yourself?" The door closed. "Yes, go. Go fuck yourself, Forrester. Then run back to your little patch of life and see if you scratch off some meaning as easily as you do for a living, if you call that life." The next morning, Forrester rose early, before first light, before his hosts were up. As Hilda arrived at Women's, he raised his arm in a salute to her, and she watched him go. The sky was a soft gray, the moon a lantern, and the water meadows glimmered. He walked the 4 miles in semi-darkness. Through drifts of snow in the fields and knee-high floods in the lanes, he passed only a shepherd moving his flock to higher ground. Half so he narrowly made the 8:20 a.m. train to London. The visit left him shaken. In the years to come, he and Lawrence would exchange occasional notes and cards. Lawrence would even encourage him to visit again, quite cheerfully, as if nothing consequence had happened that February in 1915, as if he had no recollection. Forrester would meet him only once or twice again, in the safety of polite company, but he would not forget the starling of their walk. Beloved is his host. On Lawrence's patience, the Mary, the little girl with the camera, or poor Hilda, benefit and grieving, and Lawrence's unflaunting embrace. Chapter 5. February 16th. Lady Cynthia Asquith, the daughter-in-law of the Prime Minister and preeminent English beauty of her time, was fair-haired and classical in her features, with wide, intelligent eyes of rare turquoise blue. She met the Lawrences and Margaret on a seaside holiday 2 years before, when Lawrence had been enormously kind to her children, including John. Her elder son, a boy of 6, was a highly unusual child who made animal noises, shouted or cried uncontrollably at family gatherings and in public, and apparently troubled his grandfather, the Prime Minister, nearly as much as the war. Her husband, Herbert, or Beb, as he was known, was at the front, and she was very much alone these days. Lawrence believed he knew just the thing for it. He bashed off a note informing her he would meet her off at the 12:10 of Pulborough. She would enjoy the 4 mile walk to Gretham. That was the plan, unless the telegram boy rushed in, the heavens gave way. And if the telegram boy rushed in, or the heavens gave way. For the photo, Mary assembles Lady Cynthia, Lawrence, Frida, her own mother, Monica, and at Mary's instance, Arthur. They stand in a row in front of Wilfred Manashine and wax motor car. Lady Cynthia parts her lips and stares at the blue distance, chastely, flirtatious, and in the future viewer. Frida grips sad Monica by the waist, as if she simultaneously to prop her up and make her smile. The Lawrences, contrary to their own initial expectations, have grown very fond of Monica. She is a very sensitive woman, original in her thinking, and an honest observer of herself and others. In the photo, she peers up shyly. The exile turns from the camera to listen to a burst of birdsong. A blackbird is going hard at it to get his whistle clear of winter restness. Frida elbows her husband in the ribs. He grimaces at her, and her suggestion on the count of 3, everyone is up, and he says, "Moo." Mary pulls the lever. Beyond the frame. Later that day, in the small cathedral city of Chichester, a nearby market town, they observed perhaps as many as 100 soldiers in uniform sitting, laughing, and smoking at the market cross. They were waiting for the army transit, and Lawrence could imagine only too well what horrors they were off to. Monica, Frida, and Lady Cynthia moved in and out of dress shops, although Lady Cynthia had already confided in the exile that she, like him, was cash-strapped. She asked if he would stand guard outside each shop because she could not be seen buying off the peg. "She worries me a bit," he murmured to Monica and Frida as they waited with him outside the best lady shop in Chichester. "Pip, pip," he called to his guest, hurrying as much as he dared. Frida was inclined to agree. "She is quite nice, but I feel sorry for her. She is poor in feeling." Even so, Frida was canny enough to know that the Prime Minister's daughter-in-law was never poor in connections. And before Lady Cynthia drove off from the colony in a car sent by Downing Street for her safe return, Frida collapsed her hand and made her promise she would visit again soon. February 17th. Jack Middleton Murray. The young writer, editor, and lover of Catherine Mansfield visited next, bereaved at his beloved's departure for this continent, full of unutterable miseries. He arrived at Pulborough in darkness and stumbled through the floods, only to succumb to the first evening of a cold sweat and a mucus fever. The exile made an excellent nurse. He took matters in hand, rubbing his friend down with camphorated oil, an event which Jack Murray would later find recounted in close detail in Aaron's Rod. For a long time he rubbed finely and steadily, then went over the whole of the lower body, mindless, as if in a sort of incantation. He rubbed every speck of the man's lower body, the abdomen, the buttocks, the thighs, the knees, down to the feet, rubbed it all warm and glowing with camphor-hooded oil, every bit of it, chafing the toes swiftly, till he was almost exhausted. It would be a truthful account, so truthful it would bring Murray up short as he read. He had glowed. They both had, and their friendship grew closer and warmer as a consequence of his newfound dependence on Lawrence. Yet the following day, when Jack Murray declared himself out of the woods, his host turned nurse proceeded, in Jack's words, to crucify him, both for the neglect of his lover Catherine and for her infidelity which was unfolding in Paris. He confessed, even as he and Lawrence spoke. When Murray ruefully compared her infidelity to Frida's own long history, his host glared. Frida's infidelities were not true infidelities, for they mean nothing to her. Should I turn the music up a little bit? Maybe that will help. I feel like it's a perfect temp, right? It's perfect. How long has it been? About 20 minutes? 17 minutes? Not even at page 200 yet. We're halfway there. Oh, this is a long read. It's such a long. It's tender. It's tender. Right? It's called tenderness. It just is supposed to touch a part of you that just is soft. And if you guys have been tired, you have to work in the morning. It's 10 p.m. I'm gonna close this book. I'm gonna put a little stop in it. I'm gonna close this book. I'm gonna wish you a good night.